Put it off for far too long. Here we go. So not too long ago, it was announced that there was going to be a sequel to the movie Surf's Up, and it was going to star wrestlers from the WWE. Because I guess the world needed this. Even after doing a video about the announcement, and even after watching the movie itself, I still can't believe this exists. This doesn't even feel real. It feels like a parody you'd see on, like, Robot Chicken or something. So before I watched the movie, I actually wanted to see the original, because I had never seen it before. It just seemed like one of those movies where I didn't need to see it. Just by watching the trailer, you kind of already knew what it was going to be about. But I did want at least some kind of grounding before I talked about the sequel. Surprisingly, Surf's Up was a very difficult movie to track down. But luckily, they were selling this. This gives you both movies packaged together. So I did end up watching Surf's Up, so I guess you can consider this a bonus Rob watches. It's interesting that they put the sequel above the first movie. That's not how that works. So I admit going into Surf's Up, I had a few predetermined expectations about it, but there was a lot about the movie that kind of surprised me. For example, I didn't know it was done in sort of a documentary reality show style. Kind of like something you'd see on maybe MTV or ESPN, because every once in a while they had moments where they would have like a camera crew and a character would talk directly to the camera, which kind of raised a lot of questions about this world, because I was assuming maybe there was people following them around, but based on a couple of reporters that they had, because they had like on-screen penguin reporters, I assume this is some wacky world where penguins kind of rule everything and they have technology. You know, one thing that I feel goes overlooked in an animated CGI film is camera work. Because in animation, people are always talking about how well the characters move or how well the characters look. But camera work, especially in CGI, is very important. And with the way this movie was, with its documentary style, they did a really good job of making it look like a real documentary. Because the camera was constantly fidgeting around a little bit, like as if somebody was actually holding it, and it actually looked pretty authentic. The movie also had a really good voice cast. You had Jeff Bridges, Diedrich Bader, James Woods, John Heder, Zooey Deschanel, and the main character was voiced by Shia LaBeouf, who's as good as ever. And of course, the animation was actually really good. The surfing looked very fluid and natural, and the water effects were done very well. Now, a lot of the things that I did expect about the movie were still there. It was kind of a typical competition. An upstart wants to make a name for himself, and he comes across this old guy who used to be great, and he teaches him to be great again, and etc., etc. Yeah, that was still a big part of the movie, but I'll admit it was a lot better than I expected it to be. So that was the first movie. Now for the sequel. It was bad. So the story is Cody and Lonnie from the first movie start a surfing school, but Cody begins to regret not becoming famous. And when a group called the Hang Five come to town, who are these crazy famous surfers who were not mentioned in the first movie, go figure, he wants to join them and try to become famous. So right off the bat, the animation does look a lot cheaper, which I guess is to be expected, seeing as how this is a direct-to-DVD movie, whereas the first one went straight to theaters. But there was something about it that just felt really off. Now, I don't really know how this works when it comes to a CGI film or a sequel to a CGI film, but I assume they keep the character models, the original ones from the original movie, because it really doesn't make any sense to just remodel everything. I assume that they just keep the originals and then upload it. But something about it, I don't know if it was the rendering or the lighting or if it just stuck out among all of the cheaper backgrounds and everything, but the character models did seem a bit out of place. And they tried to do the same thing that the first movie did, where they were doing it kind of documentary style, where I guess they were supposed to be interviewing the characters. Now, the first movie had a nice flow to it. They created an illusion to make you believe that a camera crew was following these characters around everywhere they go. In this movie, everything just looked static. The camera didn't move around a whole lot, and every time one of the characters did the interview bit, it just felt like it broke the flow of the film. It didn't really work. Only a few of the voice actors from the first film came back. They had Diedrich Bader and John Heder came back to reprise their characters, but they replaced Cody's voice actor with Jeremy Shada, who is Finn from Adventure Time and currently Lance on Voltron Legendary Defender. And he is distinctly different from Shia LaBeouf. It's a shame they couldn't get Shia LaBeouf to come back, but I guess at the time he was busy doing whatever this was. And then he went to go scream at some Nazis, which I guess means he's cool again. You intrigue me, Shia LaBeouf. This was also one of those sequels where the main character seems to have forgotten the lessons he learned in the first movie, because, spoilers, in the first movie, Cody doesn't actually win the surfing contest. Instead, he learns a lesson that fame is not that important and he should surf because he loves surfing, which is a very good message to have. In the second movie, all he talks about is wanting to be famous again. He had a very nice life teaching kids to surf, and all he did throughout the whole movie is go on about how he wants to be one of the Hang Five or whatever. It goes so far that he almost kills someone in the process of trying to impress them. Oh yeah, speaking of the Hang Five, the WWE wrestlers were in this movie as well. And I gotta admit, they were probably the best part of this whole thing, but for all the wrong reasons. No joke, every time I heard one of their voices come out of these big muscle-bound penguins, I nearly died laughing. It was ridiculous. Vince McMahon was legitimately funny a few times, but honestly, I think it was mostly in his delivery, because he does have that kind of voice. But really, the one who stole the show was The Undertaker. And I knew it, too, because there was a lot of great bits with him. There was a running gag of him wanting to eat John Heder's character, who was a chicken, which raises all kinds of questions. But yeah, he was really good in this. Hey Mark, when you eventually retire, go into comedy. You're good at it. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough to save this movie, because most of the plot involved them traveling to get to this great surfing location, and it involved them trekking through a jungle and a desert and a whole bunch of places where they don't surf. So the movie was actually really hard for me to get through. Not even Paige made it better. Turned Paige into a bird. Also, we need to address the glaring problem with this movie. It stars WWE wrestlers, and it's not about wrestling. It's about surfing, barely. But seriously, every other cartoon that they've been in usually involves wrestling. I mean, they had the Flintstone movie, which involved wrestling. I didn't like that one, but at least it was about wrestling. The Scooby-Doo WrestleMania Mystery was about wrestling. And yes, the sequel wasn't about wrestling either, but at least it had a good movie to go off of. It had a foundation to build on, and that's what helped make it great. Even the upcoming Jetsons movie has wrestling in it, and oh god, I just remembered that's happening too. I'm gonna have to review that too, aren't I? I just don't even understand why this movie exists. It doesn't make any sense, so just skip it. If you like penguins and you like surfing, maybe just watch the first one. It was way better. So that's all I got for this movie. Just forget about it. My name is Rob, and I'm gonna go watch something better, like WWE Stone Age SmackDown or something. See you later.